thank you all for coming, and I'm glad I could moderate this panel. It's an important set of questions, as you know, for our university, which is focuses on linking education to the world of work, and so tonight's questions with our esteemed panelists should give us a pretty good idea about the relationship between the programs that we offer and what we can do with them. So why don't we begin with some brief introductions, and I'll start to my left with the people in the room, and then I'll go to what in the room is behind me to our online panelists. Okay, so let's start.
All right. I'm Joe Perles. I'm an adjunct faculty member here at West. I'm also working as a consultant for operational risk within companies.
Joe.
Excellent. My name is Corey Pruitt, an adjunct faculty here at West as well. And I'm also the owner of Change Sparks, which is a communication consulting company.
I'm Roger Rouse, and I'm the department chair for accounting here at West. Been here since '98. And I also am the vice president and chief financial officer for Microwage, which is a national technology company.
Let's start with Michelle online. Can you hear me, Michelle?
Hi, I'm Shelby Turner, and I am department chair for general education here at West, and I also work as a technical and marketing writer.
Thank you, Michelle. And is it Marietta? Marietta? Marietta, are you there?
Great.
Oh, there we go.
My name is Dr. Marietta Lester. I'm on staff at Western International University. Also have experience in public and private industries and government.
Thank you, Marietta. And to your right, from our perspective, is Sherry. Sherry?
Greetings, everybody. My name is Dr. Sherry Bartell, and I am the program director for the Master of Public Administration program here at Western International University.
Thank you, Sherry. And at the bottom, we have Aubrey. Aubrey?
Hello, everyone. I'm Aubrey Clinch. I've been at Western, I think, teaching about 10 years now, and I currently am employed as a deputy director, technical director at the United States Army Intelligence Center Schoolhouse. I work in the CIOG 6. I do a myriad of IT practices. So I'm pleased to meet everyone, and I'm pleased to meet you, Joe. I understand that you're rewriting IT 630 for us.
That's nice to see the people who have your faith in them.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll go ahead and address this question. When it says all, it's to every one of them, but maybe I'll pick out a few people to pick on. The first question is, what advice would you give to students choosing a degree program? And why don't I just start in the room here to my left, and then maybe go down just keep going. So, Joe?
Yeah, my first advice would be to make sure that the degree program you're going with is something you already have passion for. That makes the journey a lot easier. Plus, it reinforces your own attitudes and the way you want your life to go, versus choosing a career because it happens to be popular at the time, because these things come and go, and your career is something you have to live with. So choosing something you have passion in will definitely get you further in the long run.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Corey?
Yeah, mine would piggyback on yours very easily. I'd say choose a degree that fits your interest and your skills, and then also choose a degree that meets your current needs and your future desires. So a lot of times we make decisions based off what's happening now. When we're choosing a degree, we need to be thinking that 4 years, 6 years, 8 years out, and make decisions based on that.
Roger, what do you think?
I took a couple of mine, but as the parent of a college student, I would say something that you can get a job in. So accounting is obviously a profession where there's lots of opportunities. Whether companies are making money or losing money, someone's got to add it up. So although passion is something you enjoy doing, but if you're good at something and you're making a career out of it, making money at it, then enjoyment comes along with it too. So think about the career opportunities as well.
It's almost a three bears situation, isn't it? So I'm gonna turn the question over to Marietta. Why don't I ask you? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So I want to ask you. You've heard two ends of the spectrum here. Jobs over where Roger is, and close to me is what you're passionate about. Where do you come down on that spectrum?
I think, and I like the other person that said I have a college student right now, and what I'm telling him is to explore the industry that you think you're interested in. Do internships, summer jobs. Now is your opportunity to explore. And then you see where your passion is, and then that's where you put your interest. You focus on that. But you need to go, for example, maybe you're interested in banking, you think you are, go there. Or you're interested in social services, go there. Do your internships, do your summer jobs, and then choose where you'd like to go.
Thank you, Marietta. Sherry, what do you think? Sherry, it's to you.
I'm pretty much in agreement with everything that is said so far. I really love that saying, take your passion and make it happen. So what I would advise people to do is think about what it is you like to do, research the kind of careers that are out there that require those skills. And I am also a big fan of networking, and I think it's really important to talk to people in the field, talk to current students, talk to alumni, and get their perspective, and kind of assimilate all that, and hopefully you get down the right path. That's what I did anyway.
Yes, you did. Aubrey, what do you think? Aubrey, to you.
Okay. I think that the first thing is that a student must think about that the decision they're about to make is a life-changing decision. And they want to think about whether or not the career path that they are making a decision on that they count up the actual cost of that. Really, do they want to retire in this particular field? So it's something that they have to realize, again, it is a life-changing decision they're about to make. It's not something that you can just simply glaze over, or it's just a good feeling decision. It has to be understood that this is a life-changing event.
Yes, it is. Michelle, when I was an undergraduate, I had an advisor like Joe who said, do what you're passionate about, and I ended up with a PhD in philosophy. So I wish I'd talked to Roger a little sooner. What do you think, Michelle? Michelle?
I'm glad that you listened to your professor, to your advisor, absolutely. And Roger, I adore you, but I'm going against the grain here. I'm going to say, do your homework, absolutely. Take advantage of career planning. Like everyone said here, we have great services here at West. And, think about the things you want to do. But at the same time, I absolutely believe in, your passion is important. And I believe differently that you don't have to necessarily take this degree and know that you're going to be in it all your life, because I think those skills, which is why I'm in general education, those skills transfer, and it's really important that people take those general education courses, not just to have them, but to give you that foundation for that critical thinking, all of that, and then you can make your own career. And I would say my dad, who's an Air Force colonel, Aubrey, forbid me to get a degree in English, but I did it anyway, so you can imagine how happy that made him, because he said, you're never going to get a job, but who needs English anyway? So 2 degrees in English later, and I have a job as long as I do okay here tonight, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. 2 degrees in English, isn't that a black belt in
Great.
English? Yeah.
Well, I did a PhD too, so okay.
All right, the next question I'll ask to, I think, 3 of you, and then the next one I'll go to the next 4. How about that? The next question is, what are the 3 most important things you learned in your career journey? And I'll start with, why don't we start with Marietta? Marietta, what are the 3 most important things you learned in your career journey?
Well, in my career journey, I've learned you need to listen, observe, choose your words wisely, and think about who you're speaking to and know your audience.
That was good. Roger?
Yes.
3 most important things you learned in your career journey.
First of all, education is extremely important if you want a professional career. The MBA and BS in finance have opened doors for me that would have never been opened before if I didn't have my education. Secondly, although effort and working hard is important, what's more important to your boss or your supervisor is being effective and being efficient. Just working hard but not getting the job done that they need done is not going to advance you. And then, your supervisor, your employer has hired you to help them solve problems. So if you find they're not just looking for you to point out problems. They're looking at you to, when you find a problem, come up with solutions. They'll work with you on solutions and alternatives. But the people that I've promoted, and some of the reason I think I've been promoted is because I solved problems rather than just pointing them out.
Nice. Let's see. How about Sherry? What are the 3 most important things you learned on your career journey? Sherry, it's to you.
I would say work hard and keep learning new things. Number 1, keep your promises, be a person of your word. And finally, don't take yourself too seriously. And my favorite fake Latin motto, illegitimi non carambum. Don't let the bleep get you down.
I do think that's not really Latin. But let's see. Corey, let's go on to the next question. I'd like to hear what piece of career advice you wish you had when you were entering the workforce.
Yeah, it's real simple. I wish someone would have told me it's okay to ask more questions. That you're never too big to ask questions. And someone told me that early on, I think I would have been much more successful earlier on.
It's a hard one to learn, isn't it?
It is.
And to feel that. It's interesting that so far a lot of answers are about how we relate in the workplace and the kinds of things we learn. Marietta talked a little bit about it, asking questions, speaking honestly, keeping your word. That's interesting. Joe, what one piece of career advice do you wish you'd had when you were entering the workforce?
Yeah, the one I would look for is, 1, change is not necessarily bad, and to actually seek out change. And I mean that not just organizationally, but within yourself. Be willing to try new things just because of the experience. Because that's how you really find out what you really have passion in. I really love this, but then you start doing it. Oh, I like pizza better. Right?
Mm-hmm. But Aubrey, what one piece of career advice do you wish you'd had when you were entering the workforce?
I looked over this question earlier, and I think this is what I could have used if I knew up front. If someone would have came to me and said to me, don't be afraid to fail. And if you do fail, don't be afraid to pick up and continue on without complaining. If I'd have had that up front, I think things would have been a little bit more smoother for me. And learning that along the way, fortunately, got me to the place to where I'm at today. So I did learn how to have patience, and that's what they were trying to. I know others was trying to teach me along the way early in my career. I finally got there, but if someone would have told me that up front, it would have been a whole lot better. The road would have been smoother.
You got a few laughs in the audience when you said, pick up without complaining. It's interesting. How many people have failed and then picked up, but then complained the whole way. I'm going to throw this one back to Roger. I'm going to go on to the next question now. And I think I'll probably address this to all of you, because you all come from such different backgrounds and different career backgrounds as well. What do you believe are the most sought after skills in your program area? And has this increased or decreased in the recent past?
Well, in accounting, what we're looking for, there's a technical aspect of it, but what sets people apart is some interpersonal skills. The accountants thought of as kind of introverts and numbers people, but the ability to communicate with your clients, with your colleagues, with executives is something that stands out, and that's increasing more and more as the accountant becomes more integral into the business. And then technology, obviously technology grows. When I started, I'll have to admit, as a little auditor, we used 16-column paper, so we did not have computers, so it's changed.
What is that?
I still have some in my desk. But especially in accounting, understanding software programs, and a program called Excel, I've made a career out of knowing Excel better than my boss. So I think I'm so smart because I know how to write those spreadsheets and leak them. And then there is an area of accounting that is tax, and tax law continues to get more complicated, and people who understand tax law there's an open opportunity for employment all the time. Yeah.
Corey?
Yep, it's actually what Roger said at the beginning, communication. I mean, just being able to communicate with people, I think, is the critical skill that you're going to need no matter what you're doing, accounting or IT or teaching or whatever. Just communication is what we do 80 to 90% of our day, is communicating somewhere or another with other people. So, and it's going to increase. We're going to change how we communicate, but communication will always be with us. So.
Do you find communication online and using the electronic forms of communication to be a different skill, a related skill, harder, easier? I mean, you're good in person. What about online?
Yeah, no, I think it's a different skill set.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's necessarily harder or easier, just a different skill set. Thinking of tweeting. I can take what I'm saying now, but I have to reduce it to 140 characters.
Mm-hmm.
Still communicating and having to be more precise about it, more concise about it. So just a different skill set, a cool skill set to have.
And it can be learned.
And it can be learned,
Okay.
yes.
Joe?
In my particular area, and this is going to sound weird, you have to be multilingual, and I don't mean by speaking different languages. I mean being able to speak the different languages of the different organizations. Normally I work in that fine line between business and technologies. Let me tell you, they have two different languages altogether. And getting the two, miscommunication, both sides communicating extremely well. When you look at their stuff, from one side, it makes perfect sense to you. The technology side looks at it and makes absolutely no sense, and the reverse applies. So having the ability to be the UN translator, to be able to say, okay, this is what, I know what they said, and this is what it means, not what they meant to say, but this is what it means. So having that ability, both written and oral, going back to the previous responses, extremely important, but added to that, the ability and the flexibility to recognize your audience, as was spoken before earlier, and translate dynamically into the language so the person that you're actually speaking to actually understands, and then when you do put it in writing or you are doing a presentation, that you take into account that you may have two different languages being spoken in the same room. And you got to work to that, and you've got some of that takes a lot of skill in being able to have one presentation that addresses both sides.
Did it take you a while to acquire that skill, or did you have something when you left your program that then you developed in the workplace?
I started off in technology engineering and then went to business.
Uh-huh.
So I had a little bit of a leverage there in translating technology into business and back and forth. But let me tell you, I'm still learning today because, go home tonight, when you wake up in the morning, technology has changed overnight. And the way business, while we try to say is in a model that is consistent, since the beginning of time and will never change. Sorry, the way we do business is changing just as fast as technology is. So being able to keep up with that is work. And it's not something you can say that when you finish your degree, haha, I'm there. You know, I know everything there is to know. It's a point of departure, not a point of arrival. So you get there, and that gives you the tool set you need to continue on.
Very nice. I'm going to turn to our colleagues online, and I'll start with Michelle. Michelle, what do you believe are the most sought after skills in your program area, and has this increased or decreased recently?
Absolutely, critical thinking, that ability to look at things and go further than just the surface, think about things in a different way, and to further what everybody said about communication, writing skills. They're huge. Students are often nervous about that, but nobody was born just knowing how to write. I promise I didn't have my degrees in the crib or anything. We all can do it, and that's what students want to know. That's what employers want to know. And it's so vital because everybody now, they're either emailing their bosses or their clients. We don't have secretaries anymore to fix our grammar and to make sure that what we're saying is clear and that it conveys, you know, what we intended to say, which is harder when you're just writing and, you know, not having verbal, the ability to hear that tone or to see facial expressions.
Excellent. Sherry, what about you? What are the most sought after skills in your program area, and have they increased or decreased? Has the need for them increased or decreased? Sherry, it's to you.
Repeat the question, please.
Sorry?
Once I mute my, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you asked me anything else, but when my system's on, I can't hear if you asked me anything, so.
Oh.
I need my job, so let me know if you did.
I really got her worried. Boy. All right. This is what happens when you make your provost the moderator. This one is to Sherry. And Sherry, the question is, what do you believe are the most sought after skills in your program area, and has it increased or decreased? The need for those skills increased or decreased recently?
In my area, as I said at the outset when I introduced myself, is public administration. And in public administration, we deal with all kinds of thorny problems that are complicated, complex, and they do not have easy solutions. And so start using that as a starting point. What I would say is critical thinking and problem solving would be one of the #1 skills. Being able to communicate with peers and with the public and with the media and various entities, communication is paramount. And something that I don't think anybody's mentioned yet that I think is absolutely critical in public administration is the ability to do research, to find data for whatever problem you're trying to solve, to be able to look at it, critically analyze it, and then being able to report your results and make recommendations that are going to make a difference. So critical thinking, problem solving, communications, and research.
Very interesting. Marietta, how about you? What are the most sought after skills in your program area?
My program area is management and leadership. And like the others, I believe communication is critical, especially listening skills, computer skills. You can't get a job anywhere without having your computer skills. At minimum, you have to know how to email, how to include an attachment. You have to know the computer skills. And problem solving. I do a lot of hiring at my job, and I always look for people who are solution focused. These individuals come into you with maybe 3 possible solutions, and you can choose one or rubber stamp one and say, but at least you get these people thinking about how to solve a problem themselves before they come to you. And that's what I like about when I have a new worker, their willingness to learn. They don't come in knowing everything, but they have a willingness to learn. And I'll go research and I'll communicate and I'll use my computer skills in order to see if I can solve this problem. And then if that's not the solution, I'll go back and try it again. But I think all of these have increased recently.
Thank you. And Aubrey, finally to you, what are the most sought after skills in your program area? Aubrey, it's to you.
Oh, my apologies.
That's all right.
You know, I work in the IT field, and the best way to describe this is IT is a little bit different. It's a different animal. For example, I would have to separate it in two different sets of skills, hard skills and soft skills. Because IT involves normally team player kind of skills, because you're working in teams most of the time doing different disciplines in the IT arena. So you have to have team player skills, which means you also have to be able to work in a team environment. Then on the flip side of that, I'm talking soft skills still here. You have to also have the ability to work autonomously, and many times, which means you have to have the ability to also be a manager and have management type skills. Now, something that's always a mainstay is the hard skills. For instance, if you're a network admin, that's a hard skill that's expected for you to actually perform. So, it's something that someone can train you on when it comes to hard skills, but however, you have to come with the ability to physically demonstrate what you do for a discipline. Now, if you're moving for just a management job, you have to come then with the general knowledge, because you'll move past the actual demonstration pieces. But so I would say, yes, you have to have hard skills for knowing whatever that profession is. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you can be open-minded and learn, but you have to know it, you have to perform it. But then soft skills, being able to work autonomously as a team player, that's it.
Interesting. Yeah, that's the second time this theme of lifelong learning has come up. Being able to, Joe, I think you said it as well as Aubrey, to constantly learn, asking questions, making sure that you're not afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to fail is part of a constant learning process. It's interesting, that theme. I'm very interested in hearing some of the answers to the next question. And so I think I'm going to address it to everyone. And I'll start with our colleagues online. And Aubrey, I'm going to go back to you first with this one. What was your first job when you graduated from college? And how did you get to where you are today? Aubrey?
I guess I'll start off. I started off, I joined the military. I joined the Army right after high school. So I came to West when I was still in the uniform. So what I want to say is I was an intel analyst. And I want to say up front that I already had IT skills that was pretty well matured. And I tell you why. For an intel analyst, this job requires that your M16, the M16 is not my weapon, the computer is my weapon. That's the best way to say how I build my skill set, because the M16 is not my weapon, the computer is. So I worked with computers for the most of my career. Now moving from that, I went to West. I want to say what happened here to move me further on my career is that once I went to West, I had the skill sets. I had the things that I could really grow more and more and improve on. What college brought to me to enable me to get where I'm at is it brought a perspective of where I could put everything in an organized manner to know how to fix, mitigate, work out different problems. So college gave me a better view into problem-solving skill sets. So I think this is the most valuable thing that college gave me, the ability to organize and solve problems with my experience. So it basically put even a sharper edge on my experience. And so that sharper edge got me to where I'm at today. And going to West put me in that position.
Excellent. Let's see, how about Sherry? What was your first job after you graduated from college, and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, I had sort of an unusual career path to get to where I am today. I graduated with a degree in mathematics, and my first job out of college was as an operations research analyst for the U.S. Navy Fleet Material Support Office in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, which is inland, even though it's a Navy base, but it was a supply depot during World War II. But I've always been kind of hyper, and I have sort of a short attention span. So what years ago, I think people were a little bit critical of me. They called me a job hopper, but I stayed within the same command for 18 years, but in those 18 years I did all kinds of things. My resume reads like a portfolio of experience. I would try things, learn them, and then I was ready for the next challenge. And as I did that within my command, new challenges, new opportunities would open up. And probably one of the most pivotal things that happened to me was I went to a program, Office of Personnel Management, had what they call a Women's Executive Leadership Program. And I was nominated by my command to go participate in that. And I went to Washington, D.C., and I was actually always kind of snooty about my math degree. I thought it was all that in a bag of chips. And then I was exposed to all these people from all these federal commands across the United States that had master's degrees and doctorates. And I remember when we were getting up to introduce ourselves, I was like, oh, my name is Sherry Martell, I have a master's degree. You know, all at once it didn't seem like such a big deal. And when I got back after that program, I went up to my boss and I said, I want to go back to school. And I had figured I should get an additional math degree or maybe something in computer science because at that time I was in data administration. And he said the only thing that I can get reimbursed for was either an MBA or an MPA. And as it turned out, one of the satellite campuses for Penn State University is not far from where I live, and I did some investigation, and they had both programs there, but I went with the MPA because being a government worker, it made sense. It actually cost a few bucks less than doing the MBA because only 39 credits were required for the master's degree, and lo and behold, they had a doctoral program, and I thought to myself, if I really like this, I can go on, and as it turned out, I just absolutely loved what I was learning at Penn State. And I went on to get my doctorate, and I taught at Penn State for a while, and then I got into online teaching, and suddenly all that led me to West Door, and now I work for you, Ben. So here I am.
Yes, you do.
That makes
Couldn't be any happier about it. Let's see. Marietta, what was your first job after you graduated from college, and how did you get here?
My first job after I graduated from college was a job coach, and that includes finding jobs for individuals with disabilities. So I've always loved helping people, so I've always wanted to help individuals, especially individuals with disabilities, to become independent. And the job gave them that outlook to become independent. So I worked side by side with them. Of course, I was networking as well. I've always been on a career path to move forward. I've always wanted more. I never want to settle for anything. I always want more and more. And so I started to explore upward mobility. I started applying for different jobs, networking with different people, talking with them, getting to know them. Similar to what Sherry had said, some people used to think I was a job hopper, but I would get to a certain point, I wanted to learn something different. So I would go to another job and I would learn that job, and I just kept moving up and moving up, and my reputation was building in the field. I've been in the field now for 23 years as of next week Tuesday, so I've been in the field for a long time.
Good.
And so I enjoy it, and I like making myself marketable, seeking out opportunities to increase my knowledge, skills, and abilities. And that's what brought me to West. I wanted to be a lifelong learner. I continue to be a lifelong learner, and that's why I have my doctorate degree, and I encourage everyone to get education. Education is something that cannot be taken away from you, and so I encourage you to do it and explore, different industries and see exactly where you'd like to be. And you can always change. The first job is not the job forever. So, thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, how about you? What was your first job out of college, and how did you get to where you are today?
After I earned my first degree, I started working on my master's, and you may find this funny, my professor, my mentor said, you ought to go for your doctorate. And I said, oh my gosh, in those days, because I'm kind of old, what was I going to do with it but teach? And I said I could never teach. I could not stand in front of people and teach anyone. So I knew I wanted to work as a writer. I needed to earn money. I didn't have any. So I wanted to take my background. I had almost all the requirements to get a biology degree as well. So I didn't know what to do with those, but those of you who are old enough to remember this, there used to be a thing called a VCR, and it had a manual that supposedly would tell you how to program it. I never was able to record anything at all because I couldn't understand that manual. And I thought, why don't I use these skills? I understand science and medical from being a veterinary assistant, and I've got this English degree, to try to explain things to people. And around here, where I live in Ohio, there weren't any technical writers. They didn't even have a program at the university where I went. So I wrote myself a resume and talked about my strengths, which I said, you know what, I can do this. I sent this to people that were manufacturers and researchers around in Dayton, and one day a company that was in division research called me up and said, could you help our CEO? He needs to write all these papers. So I said, yeah, and that's what I did. I learned so much. I worked for him. Later, he decided to move to California, and like an idiot, I stayed in Ohio. There wasn't a lot of internet then. So while I was at a wedding, and I say this because of the importance of networking and talking, I mentioned that I worked as a technical writer, and someone at the table said, oh my gosh, my engineering and environmental firm's looking for somebody to do that, to help our people who write, who are brilliant, but their writing skills, are not going very well to their audience. So I went to work there, and I also decided, I love to use my skills to help people. I don't want to use them just to help myself. And a vice president at that company said to me one time, hey, my wife is taking the coolest class. He said, after the class, they're like there and they're all talking. Really talking in the classroom. He said, you would be really great at that, and it's such a cool place. Why don't you talk to them? And it was West. I came to West and fell in love with West, and I've learned from the good people at West, my colleagues who teach me so much. And that's what I'm doing now, working on my doctorate in education for student success, and that continual always learning. Absolutely. If not that, I might have to cook and clean. So I will be learning and going to school all my life.
I think we all agree you made the right choice there. Roger, your first job after graduating from college.
Sure.
How do you
Not knowing why exactly, I went to work for a very large international accounting firm. I heard that partners made large six-figure incomes, so I said, well, I'll do that. But it turned out that I really liked it. I was an auditor in Orange County, California. Spent 6 years doing that. It's a great place to start. You see a lot of different industries. You meet a lot of people. You learn a lot. You work with a lot of good people. Then actually my father had a company that was growing quite a bit here in the Valley, and he needed help. So I made the decision that a lot of public accountants make. Am I going to stay in public accounting and go for the partnership thing and do this for the rest of my life, or am I going to go into what we call industry? And my father really needed help. I decided to leave public accounting, went to work for him, became the president of the company, and we sold it after about 3 years to Ernst & Young. And I had a decision to make about where I went, and looked around, and I really enjoyed the field of accounting. I was good at it, and I had a lot of experience, so I took a job as assistant controller in a large public company here in the Valley. Worked my way up to corporate controller. I did all the SEC reporting, the 10Qs and the 10Ks, and then the company went through the whole industry. Technology around 2000, 2001 went through a huge change, and I was in the right spot, though. This is one of those instances where I was the accountant. I was one of the last people to be there as we sold off all the divisions and things like that. And my best year ever was the worst year ever for the company because of the role of the accountant in that. And then the founder of it started a new company and asked me to be his finance person, and we've grown it over the past 10 years, and now that's how I got to be the chief financial officer of Microwave. So that's my path.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Corey.
Yeah, mine's not so glamorous. Right out of college, I went and worked as asset protection for Sears, the guy who catches people stealing stuff. This is great. And I ended up doing a lot of things there with starting to train new people. And I thought, okay, this training thing is cool. Got my master's degree in psychology and started to counsel, and all of a sudden started training counselors. I thought, okay, this is cool. Now going into a doctorate degree now and doing things like that, and I thought, well, gosh, this training thing must be something I'm decent at. So started to train, started to teach, and that's what I've done ever since, is just teaching and training. Every job I fell into, I started to teach and train. So
That's interesting.
just kind of fell into it all.
Like a groove.
Right.
Nice. Joe.
Yeah, I have a similar start. I grew up in the Air Force, came right out of high school into the Air Force. And took me a long time to get that first degree. One, I was moving every 18 months. So back then, there was no such thing as the internet, right? So if you went to class, you had to sit in a classroom. And if you're moving every 18 months, it's a little hard to finish a degree. So it took me quite a while. But one of the things that was happening while I was there is we were constantly going back to school to learn leadership. Seems like every 2-3 years we were sent back to some kind of academy or leadership school. So that got me interested. Still not sure what I wanted to be when I grow up, but okay. So I got an associate degree in logistics management, learned the management stuff, and I decided that's not what I'm going to be. So I went back to school and got my bachelor's. Well, if you're in the enlisted track, having a degree back then was not a job requirement. But what it did give me was that stuff that was missing out of all the leadership schools. They taught you leadership and they taught you management. But what they didn't tell you is they're two different things. You'll hear people talk about leadership and management as being synonymous, and they're not, because you lead people and you manage things. And you're really going to mess things up if you lead a machine and you manage a person. Okay? But you see it all the time. They manage, that people are resources that are managed, and then they wonder why they have people problems. Or like me, they talk to their machine, now they got bigger problems. But learning these things helped me because I had a skill set that they weren't providing. I had a knowledge, I had the deeper understanding, and that really helped me throughout my career. It made a big difference, even though it didn't pay off directly because you don't get promoted because you got your undergraduate degree. But I did find a lot more jobs opened up for me, a lot more opportunities to volunteer opened up for me, because here you have a skill set and you have a proven track record of being better at leading and better at managing than your peers. And that really got me going, and then I got some really nice assignments. I got to work at an embassy. I got to work for a numbered Air Force. I got to work for Space Command and NORAD, U.S. Space Command, along with Air Force Space Command. Really great assignments, really scary assignments, but really great, right? And when I got to that point in my career, it was like, I've gone as far as I can go with what I've got. But because I'm still moving all the time, it's hard to continue and get my master's. So I got out, right? That's when I really started learning things, because there's a big difference in the way you do things in one area and the other. So as I was getting my master's degree, one thing I found out, you should be getting paid a lot more than what you're getting paid right now as a military person. So learning the differences, and then as I got my graduate degree, it helped me in that transition of now I'm getting more into the corporate side rather than the military side. And then after that, I decided, just for me, not as a personal aspiration, I went and got my doctorate. So, yeah, it's had its benefits in indirect ways that I can't say. One of the things when I got my undergraduate degree, my cohorts in the classroom that were in corporate, I get my degree and I get a $10,000 pay raise, and I'm going, well, I get to go back to work and wear the same uniform and work for the same people in the same place. Those differences in how you approach things really made a big difference in my career, and that thirst for knowledge, being able to look around for me and say, these people are getting knowledge, but they're missing a part. And I bet you I'm missing a part too. So that kept me going.
Interesting. I like those distinctions that you're drawing between the management and the leadership, the keeping going with your knowledge and being satisfied with what you have, and it's very nice. Then the next question is sort of along similar lines, but I'll rephrase it a little bit. We all have moments in our paths, educational career paths, where there's a pivotal decision, there's a pivotal moment, and sometimes they have to do with work and career. Sometimes they have to do with other kinds of decisions you make in order to stay in that work and to stay in that career. And so I'd like to find out from you, as you look back on your trajectory, What was a pivotal decision you made in that path, and what either kept you on it or put you on a different one? Some of you have said, and online and in the room, that you were job hoppers, and I guess once upon a time that had a negative connotation. I'm not sure it does anymore. And so maybe there's one decision that frees you up to take different jobs. Maybe you just keep making new pivotal decisions. But anyway, what's a pivotal decision? I'll ask maybe a few of you, not everybody. Let's start with Marietta. Can you tell us about a pivotal decision you made on your trajectory?
Well, my pivotal decision was returning to school. I had earned my bachelor's degree, and at that time, a bachelor's degree, that was what was needed in the market. But as I saw that the market was changing, I returned to school for my master's degree. And then I see the market has continued to change, and I love learning. I'm a lifelong learner. Let me just continue in school while I'm in school, because it took me over almost 20 years to return from my master's. So I said, let me just stay in and get my doctorate degree. And that was the deciding factor for me, because education to me is key. It's key to your advancement. It's key to your thinking, your critical thinking skills. That's what education teaches you. And the further you go, the more opportunities open up for you.
20 years before you went back for your master's degree. It was 20 years before you went back for your master's degree. Was that a scary decision after 20 years? How did it feel to go back into it after that long?
Oh, it was very different. It was, but it was something that I've always wanted to do. But again, remember, the opportunities were only for the brick and mortar schools. Mm-hmm. At that time. And then schooling started changing in terms of being available at night. So I attended night classes. And then the venue changed to online classes. So I think the changes in society kind of drew me to that, because I was always looking to return to school, but I had to work full time, and the classes were during the day, 10 until 11 o'clock, 2 until 3. Well, those were my working hours, and I couldn't find anything that really fit into my schedule. And then that was a huge gap, and because I was so motivated, I really wasn't afraid to return to class, because I was always seeking out training opportunities and enriching myself on my own anyway. And so I was happy to return to class and to share my knowledge and my experiences, and also to listen to other people and to learn from them as well.
Interesting. Corey, how about you? What do you remember a pivotal decision, pivotal thing?
Yeah, my pivotal thing was probably more of a mental pivot, and it was the day that I decided that I get to choose who influences me and who doesn't. And I think that day was, I was actually probably a year out of undergrad school, a year into my graduate degree, and someone mentioned that to me, just in passing. And it stuck with me ever since, that I get to choose who influences me, and when I make that decision, I choose my path. And from then on, I've realized that now every day is kind of one of those pivot moments, and I get to choose, well, how am I going to respond to things that are happening to me? How am I going to respond to those people? And since then, it's just been huge opportunities have opened for me with a different mindset, with a different pivot.
That's a good one. I'm going to have to remember that. I'm going to move on to the next question, and I'm going to ask this of people who I think come from different career sort of paths. Aubrey, I'm going to ask you first about networking groups. What networks do you think are most valuable to graduates from your field?
In my field, I think the best way to start with networking is to actually look at attending conferences that are being held within your profession, the IT profession. doesn't have to be the high-end conferences, it can be the low-end conferences, but look at attending these conferences, these IT conferences, and then go to these conferences. This is where I created a whole network at, so that's why I'm suggesting this. So you go to these conferences and you get to meet other professionals in your field, and you exchange business cards, conversations, and promises of staying in contact and these type of things. And I can tell you, for doing those type of networking connections through the years, have opened a myriad of doors for me. It also enabled me to actually, if I cannot hire someone into a job, I know someone who I can hire. For example, I mentor a lot of people, to include some past students from West, and they have requested that I help them in seeking employment, and I've done that for them. But so I was enabled. The thing that enabled me to do that is networking with people I met throughout these conferences throughout the years. Networking. So I think that's the best way to start, networking at IT conferences.
Good. Thank you, Aubrey.
That's a great place.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. And now, Roger, what about networking in your field? And
For graduates?
yeah.
It's been a long time. It's changed. We do have something, state accounting societies. There's an Arizona Society of Certified Public Accountants that you can join. You can join as a junior member without being a CPA yet, and they have trainings and conferences that you can attend. If someone's new or starting their accounting career, one of the best things to do, I think, is join a public accounting firm, and whether it's regional or local, because you're going to meet a lot of different potential employers. You go to their business and you audit their books and you learn about them. You get to know them. You learn about their culture. And so, as far as advancing your career and finding where you want to go, that's not quite to the question there, but. And then, a lot of my networking came out of the peers I also worked with at the public accounting firm. So staying in touch with them. There's something called LinkedIn that many of you may already be involved with, but from a professional place, being on LinkedIn, whenever we want to learn about somebody, we automatically go, we don't go to their Facebook page. We go to we do that sometimes.
You learn different things.
We learn different things. But we go to their LinkedIn page, and that's where we really find out a lot about them professionally.
Thank you. Let's see. We're just at near the end of our time now, and I know that there are probably a lot more questions to ask, but I want to ask the last one because I think it's very important for guests and others to hear from a few of you, and this will be to Corey and then to Aubrey, and we'll start with Aubrey online. Aubrey, what do you look for in a candidate when you are making that hiring decision?
Okay, I look for first, and I know it may be a little one-sided, but I look that they do have a degree. Now, it doesn't have to be specifically a degree in IT. And I'll tell you why. Having a degree goes back to what I said earlier. It tells me something about that potential hiring candidate without me really knowing anything about them. For example, it tells me that they are organized and they have the clear ability to stick with something and finish it to the end. And this is a very important, skill set to have, the ability to organize, and you stick with something to the end. And we all know that they are facing challenges throughout their, life, even while they're attending colleges. So that speaks volumes to me when they have that degree.
That's interesting.
Now, the other thing I look for in their resume, does what the resume demonstrate fit the job? Now, I talked earlier about hard skills and soft skills. Now, this job that I'm hiring for specifically require hard skills. I would have them demonstrate that simply by putting a system or computer in front of them, running through a demonstration to see can they actually perform that. If it's a hard skill. If it's not a hard skill, then I stick with the soft skills of communication, speaking well, listening, writing well, these type of things. So this is basically where it's at in the government, that you have ability to organize, your ability to be organized. I know a lot of people talk about, well, I don't have the right skill sets or whatever, but I can tell you in the government, they will train you. They will train you. You don't necessarily have to agree that fits.
Interesting. Thank you. And Corey, the last question of the evening then will go to you, and that is, what do you look for in a candidate when you're making a decision?
Sure. So, and I don't look for the degree because that's the price of admission. I mean, that you can't even get in there unless you have that. So once that's done, what I look for is two things. Look for the cultural fit and the communication skills. Will you fit the culture of the organization? Will you fit the culture of the company? Because that's the biggest killer, is if you don't fit. It's a bummer for you and a bummer for the organization. So that's the biggest thing. Second is the communication skill set. Do you have that communication skill set? There was some research that was done by Gallup about 6 months ago, and they said the top 2 skills, even still today, 80% of managers surveyed said the listening skills is the number 1 thing they look for. 78% said interpersonal communication skills is the number 2 thing they look for. So that's not changing. I think that's where things are going. So cultural fit and communication skills.
It's very interesting that the emphasis all night has been on those skills, and we can call them soft, we can call them integrative, we can call them social, but that's really run through this presentation and through all of your answers. Well, we've come to the end of our time. To those of you who are online, I want to thank you for being here, and for those of you who joined us in the room, and to our guests, thank you. I hope you learned something about the relationship between a degree and a degree at West and work. So thank you very much, and
Great.
that's it. Thanks.
Great.